Yeah, thank you everybody for joining the stream. My name is Dan Salvato. You probably know that. I think this is my first time actually like publicly playing DDLC, but I figured that given that, you know, the game's been out for a year now, it'd be good for me to kind of just, you know, give it a little playthrough, talk about, you know, how shitty the game is, whatever. I don't know. I don't really like have many plans. You can probably tell just by, I don't know, me not really doing anything cool for the anniversary and me being late to the stream, that I don't really like have much shit together right now in general. I don't know. You know, I guess things have been like pretty stressful in general. Like my mental health hasn't really been so great the past few months probably. But you know, I just I don't know. There's so many amazing and supportive people in the community, and I don't know. I love seeing all the cool stuff that you do and make every day. And I figured that, you know, I would kind of owe it to everybody to just do something small at least. So, you know, I'm here to have fun with everyone. I should also warn you that like it's, you know, I wasn't lying when I said that. I'm not like, you know, there's nothing super special that's going to be happening. I really don't have anything to like announce or anything like that right now. You know, apologize if you were like here or waiting around hoping for something like that. But you know, feel free to leave. I won't be offended. I'm just gonna get started. I don't know why I'm like kind of delaying. Yeah, so I just want to have some fun kind of, you know, talking through the game as I play it. Let's speed up the text a little bit. Yeah, just, I don't know, some developer commentary would be fun, right? Yeah, for like the first chapter of this game, I wrote the first chapter before anything else because I was like, okay, this is like, you know, I need to kind of like lay the groundwork for like the most generic, tropey like dating sim that I can think of. Literally just starting off in the first scene, it's like, I don't know, the trope of like the childhood friend like wanting to walk to school together and like the, you know, the kind of asshole guy like not really, you know, kind of being sarcastic and like not really wanting to be with her. And it's like, I don't know, I feel like you just see that come up all the time, and I thought it was just a really fun way of starting off the game. Sayuri had like a few character inspirations throughout like various, you know, various shows and stuff like that. Naturally, the characters were inspired by just like, you know, like oftentimes like really tropey dating sims or visual novels, but they probably took some inspiration from like other shows that I've watched and enjoy. You know, very bubbly and like clumsy, and but when she's being goofy, it's like it's like half being clumsy, but half like she's doing it on purpose just to kind of, you know, lift everyone's spirits. But it's not like they're a complete match. I just think like her general goofiness, I feel like that's kind of what I had in mind when I was like writing some of those scenes, you know. You know, the whole childhood friend thing is where she gets like really tropey in my opinion. And also there are so many freaking shows, and like it starts off where it's like there's the club and they like kind of need one more member for the club, and then there's like the members coming in and they're like reluctant, and you know, they have to like take some convincing. I don't know, you see it like so many times, and half of them are probably like those, I don't know, really crappy shows. I don't know, it worked out like, it felt so natural like writing that as the first chapter. I'm just like, I kind of just like, I mean the first draft anyway, I sort of like plowed through this and I'm like why is this so easy to write? You know, probably because I've read it like so many times. I tried to balance out the dialogue between each of the characters so you can kind of like get a good introduction to each of them. But you know, then it's like the MC's just like, I never said I would join the club, and then all the girls get dejected, and he's like, alright, fine, I'll join the club, and then they're all happy. You know, I think like it came together pretty well, but like it's, you know, it's so completely unoriginal. But I think that's a big reason I like it. When I like started writing this, I was like, why am I having so much fun just like writing this like moe garbage? It was like a lot of fun to write. I'm just like, you know, because I was like, I had like done other writing in the past that's normally like really like serious stuff, you know, and so like kind of when I was like, you know, put that aside and like started writing this, I'm like, this is such like a breath of fresh air to just like, you know, write like the dumbest thing I possibly can. I mean, like, you know, when talking about like the first couple chapters of this game, for instance, it just made it like really easy to start off writing this. I love this line. This club is full of incredibly cute girls. It's so like, I don't know. I like to think like, for people who like pick up this game and they like don't really know what it's about, and people are like, oh, just play it, and then like they start playing it and they see this, they're just like, this is probably the first point where they're just like, oh my freaking god, like what am I getting into right now? Another interesting observation for like, you know, because a lot of people play this game who like don't play visual novels or like haven't like seen much anime, you know, and they don't see Natsuki as like, oh, she's like the tsundere type, you know, like that's cute or whatever, you know, like all the weeaboos like Natsuki, like her shirts sell the best, for instance, because only weeaboos are gonna like plaster an anime girl on their body, but I'm just kidding. Half the stuff I say don't take completely seriously, but you know, but people who like don't watch anime, they're just like, wow, Natsuki is like a jerk, you know, like, you know, I want to stay away from her. They don't understand the appeal, man. They don't understand the tsundere. Meanwhile, they're like all about Yuri. They're like, oh my god, she's so like shy and cute, you know. You know, that's obviously the first thing that you notice about her. Oh, another thing that I really tried to do with this dialogue, which I don't really mention all that much, but I deliberately wrote the sentence structure and the phrases to make it feel like it was like a poorly translated Japanese visual novel. Like, there's just certain phrases that are like you hear in like Japanese, but you don't really hear in English. Like when someone is like, that's like dash, like cut or ellipses, you know, like sore wa, and they like trail off. You don't really hear that in like English, but I like tried to put those things in here to like make it feel just that much more cheesy, if that makes sense. Like, right, this is a good example. That's not. Oh, this is interesting. This line, when Yuri says, I've been reading a lot of horror lately, she used to say, I've been reading a lot of Stephen King. But pretty, like, just a couple months before I released the game, I changed that line, because, I watched the anime, School Live, or School Live, Gakko Godashi, and, one of the characters, like, is reading, like, a Stephen King book, and that's also, like, starts off as like a cute show and then like turns into like a kind of, you know, kind of horror. And I was like, oh my god, like I watched that show and I'm like, oh my god, people are gonna think I copied this show. So I actually like removed the Stephen King line because like I was afraid of being accused of like copying that show. That also happened with Totino. I forget the full name of that visual novel, but the same thing happened. I was working on DDLC and some people are like, oh, that, you know, that's like Totino, where like the girl, I don't know, kind of like there's one like route or ending where she like breaks the fourth wall or whatever, and I'm like, okay, you know, let me try to like avoid that so I don't take like too much of a direct inspiration from it. But it just goes to show that like the core concept behind DDLC is like not that original, you know? It's been like done a lot of times. I think that's the case with a lot of media, you know? Like how many, you know, like how much anime is just like the same basic plot, especially like slice of life, but then there's probably one or two that you just like so much more for some reason because, you know, that's how I feel anyway with like certain types of media, because oftentimes it's like something you more personally relate to or something you like about the execution or the characters or whatever. You know, that's the case with games with like, you know, DDLC, Undertale, Totino. People have their preferences on which they like more. I after DDLC came out, I think people were people were comparing certain aspects of the game to Totino, and a lot of like visual novel enthusiasts felt that it was like a I guess like I'm trying to remember because I still haven't played Totino, so like I can't draw any direct comparisons, but I think people were saying it was like a less fleshed out version where you like don't get to know the characters as much, and it seems more like it's just for like the one thing, whereas Totino like tells a more complete story. I could be wrong because again I'm just trying to remember what people were saying about it, but the point is that like yeah, it can be the same core concepts, and people just have different preferences on the execution. And there are a lot of people who like the way that DDLC was executed, despite it, other types of media having done it as well. And that's something that I, of course, can't help but be very happy with. I'm really glad to have provided that concept in a way that people enjoyed that much. Yeah, that was it. Kimi to Kanojo no Koi. When I say Totino, I think that's people also refer to it as that, right? Okay. What character should I go for? I'll let chat decide. Mythos, can you make like a straw poll or something, and just like spam the straw poll in the chat? I think that's probably the best way of doing this because I'm not able to read it like from the actual chat, and I'll just do that. Make a new one every poem mini game. I think this is one of my favorite tracks in the game. I had so much fun writing this track. It shifted directions like several times until it got to the point where it is now. Oh my god, I opened the straw poll and I'm like, wait, where's Monica? I forgot. Oh my god. That's so terrible. That's actually pretty surprising because, I mean, like, in the most non-mean way possible, and like when I've done polls in the past or like other analyses, Sayori is like almost never on top, so I'm always glad to see her get some love. It also like depends on the demographic and stuff, but alright. That's enough time. You can stop spamming Mythos. Let's go for Sayori. So, oh man, let's hope I remember which words to pick. Well, this one's pretty obvious. That one's pretty obvious. Okay, probably this one. There are probably like people who are better at this than me. It's 8 out of 8 so far. Oh, I messed up. That's alright. Messed up again. Oh, I actually knew that one was Yuri. Oh well. That's Sayori. That's Sayori. Well, that's enough Sayori to like be on her route anyway, so yeah, I do want to talk a little bit more about the music in this game. I would say that like let me think. The reason that I wanted to make the music myself as opposed to like hiring someone, for instance, was I feel like it's just the type of game where most of it's going to be like this really generic, upbeat, like dating sim music, and although my music production skills and composition skills are like not really at a professional level yet, like I'm able to make like simple sounding stuff with simple notes, and kind of the repetitive melodies, and that's really what I wanted to do in this game. Just like I wanted to like get the tunes kind of stuck in your head, like make them hummable. I think theme songs are like in games are so great when it's like a very memorable and hummable tune, like especially after you're like done with the whole thing and then like you're kind of reminded of it and you hear like the first few notes and it just like kind of like brings all the feelings back, that's happened to me with like certain movies and certain games, and so I was like, I thought that with my kind of you know, very simple writing, I would be able to do that, and like repeating motifs throughout the game. So that's kind of what I had in mind for that. I'm like, okay, well, I have that kind of approach that I want to do with it, and since my skills are at least good enough to do that, like, you know, I feel like I should be able to do that myself. And I have like a lot of scrapped, you know, like tried to start certain songs and like they just didn't really happen because either I wasn't good enough or like the idea wasn't good enough. So it took me like a lot of tries to like get the songs in the game that I have now. But I'm overall happy with the way that they. Of course, because she's like the ditzy childhood friend, and he's like, "Oh, you can't do anything right," and she's like, "Hee hee hee, I love you even though you're an asshole." And Sayuri is trying to be like, I don't know, trying to like hook up MC with like the other club members. Not literally hook up, but she's trying to like kind of like bring them together a little bit, because she's just like, I want everyone to be friends with each other and not care about me. And here's MC just like smooth talking his way through every situation. His personality just changes depending on the girl he's talking to, because that's another thing where it's like in you know, in like these dating sims, the MC is like a total blank slate who like sort of has his own personality, but like he just he says whatever is like appropriate for the trope of the character he's like talking to, you know? So it's like, oh, the childhood friend he's like kind of mean to, the shy girl he's just like really like encouraging and like, you know, like, I don't know, compliments him and stuff. And then like the tsundere he like teases, and then of course like the class star, that's when he gets like all like nervous and awkward. I think Sayori's was probably the most challenging because Sayori's one-on-one interactions with MC have to be in the context of them having like been best friends since childhood, or at least like good friends since childhood, you know? And you know, it kind of implies that they like lost touch a little bit recently, but the point is that like they have this whole history together, and so they fundamentally treat each other differently, and they make references to like things they already know about each other, you know, and like past events, and like a lot of that stuff was like, you know, kind of difficult to come up with, even though it's all like pretty simple stuff. It's like when you're thinking about their dialogue interactions, like you can't just kind of do as much of whatever you want as you can with like Natsuki and Yuri, who are like who are completely fresh to MC. You have to like put a lot of thought into how to make them feel like they've known each other for a long time. And you know, with this scene here, you know, I sort of wanted to like, I mean, like you're going for Sayuri because you picked her in the poem minigame, or maybe that's just like the result that you happened to get. But the point is that instead of like, you know, MC just being strictly mean to her, like I tried to kind of show that like they're a good balance for each other, you know, where like, you know, Sayuri like looks out for him and he looks out for her, and they both like complement each other in different ways, if that makes sense, you know. I didn't like it was actually really funny because that CG specifically, what is it, before the game came out, I like printed some CGs on like some postcards and like handed them out at like a local convention, and I just completely didn't realize that out of context it looks like he's like unbuttoning her shirt. And I'm like, oh my god. And that was the one that people took the least of, most likely because they don't want to have like a, you know, such a lewd scene on display. In context, it's like obviously not as bad, but it's still like sort of, you know, the imagery is like, you know, a little bit fan servicey, I guess. I love when Monika just like flies into the scene and like just interrupts whatever's going on. You know, and of course in some of the later exclusive scenes she like does it on purpose to basically like, I don't know, break the romance between MC and the other character. It's just, I don't know. It was always fun like kind of throwing that in there because the reader is like, yes, it's happening, and then she just like swoops in from the side and they're like, oh my god, come on, Monika. No, I mean, yeah, Monika never had like a route, because the whole point of the game is that she doesn't, you know? That's the reason that the game has a plot. The plot is centered around the fact that she is not obtainable. Alright, I think we need to talk about this poem a little bit. I wrote this and I was so hesitant about it. I was like, this is way too, like, simple, kind of, and, like, I don't know, like, too easy, if that makes sense. Like, Natsuki is definitely a better writer than this, and so, like, do I really want it to be, like, that, I don't know, like, bad, if that's what you want to put it. And so many people, like, made fun of this poem so much when they read it for the first time. Oh my god. And that made me feel, like, even more self-conscious about it. In the end, though, I think I think because of that, it ended up, like, standing out a little bit more, and people remember it because of its simplicity. Like, its rhythm and its, like, kind of the quotes used in it, like, I see them, like, resurface here and there, and so I guess in the end it sort of worked out, but, like, I felt bad that, like, especially a lot of people who, like, aren't, like, into the tsundere type, like, they already think Natsuki's, like, a jerk. And then they see, like, this ridiculously simple poem from him, and, like, oh my god, like, you know, just, like, I should have given, like, I shouldn't say it, I should have, because I just talked about how, like, this ended up sort of working out in a way, but, I feel bad that I didn't give her a little bit more credibility for, like, you know, I should, you know, especially since you find out that she's, like, already a writer, and it's, like, I don't know, it would be nice if she kind of, like, blew everyone away with, like, some, you know, like, redeeming quality after she's kind of, like, this, off-putting or, like, unappealing personality or whatever. I don't know. That's only from, like, one perspective, you know, the type of people who experience the game or the characters in that way, but, like, that was definitely on my mind, that's all I'm saying. But you can tell she's not confident in it. I don't know. Maybe, like, she didn't put much effort into it because she wasn't really feeling it. I mean, like, the poem itself is, like, about, like, you know, giving up in the first place, or how she, like, you know, doesn't feel confident in it. So in that way, it's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So that's, you know, that might be one way to look at it. Mr. Protagonist has to, like, sugarcoat and be like, oh, I liked it. But there's, like, you know, I mean, there's truth to that. Like, the protagonist is saying that, like, you know, he gets to the point, which is that, like, it's, you know, the point is for someone to express themselves. And, you know, that immediately, like, you know, gets Natsuki out of, like, sulk mode, and she's like, yes, like, you know, I'm glad you understand, and now I can, like, kind of talk about it in, like, a more serious way. I like when, you know, Natsuki so often gets, like, the short end of the stick, no pun intended there, but when she kind of has, like, redeeming moments, it's like, you know, I like that. It's like, I feel like she deserves it, you know. The whole point of her character was that, like, she, you can tell she's in, like, probably a really bad friend group for her, where, like, it's one of those friend groups in, like, high school, or, like, I don't know. So a lot of people, like, they have a friend group in middle school or high school where the dynamic of the friend group is just, like, they just, like, make fun of each other all the time, and they, like, pull pranks on each other, and, like, they're, like, mean, and it's, like, funny, you know, and it's just, like, their dynamic, but, when it gets to somebody a little too much, there's, like, no one there to really stop it, and that person can't, like, express that because it's not part of the dynamic, and so, like, things go a little bit too far, and I think that's the way it is for Natsuki, where she's, like, you know, an insecure person, and, like, people probably make fun of her for her hobbies, and, like, you know, that she likes manga and stuff like that, you know, probably in jest, again, because that's just, like, how the friend group is, but, like, Natsuki really takes it to heart, and, like, it, like, really lowers her confidence and feels like she, is just always insecure around people. It's like that's how she thinks it has to be, and so she carries that personality, like, into the club, because that's just, that's, like, what she knows, if that makes sense. And so she constantly feels the need to like find this sort of self-validation or like prove herself, and you know, her like kind of general meanness to other people is probably stems from that dynamic that she had in the friend group too. And so that's just like, you know, it's an unfortunate situation, but a big part of her character development, I think, is like learning how to you know, be comfortable with the other members of the club who are as interested in you know, really being friends with her, you know, in like a nice way as she probably is with them, you know. So that's kind of like you know, something I really wanted to do there with her character. You know, it's like, you know, if I'm gonna make like this tsundere this tsundere girl, like there has to be like, you know, if I want to personally, I guess, care about the character and not literally just have them be like a one-dimensional trope, then, you know, there has to be like, it's like, why is she behaving that way? You know what I mean? And I think through high school, like I was friends with so many people who like had these insecurities or were like in those kinds of friend groups, and I had so many of my own insecurities, and like thinking back to like high school and in some cases middle school, like you know, I was really thinking about like all these characters are probably just going through so many of those same things, and I really wanted to like convey that in their personalities, you know. It's like a tough time for a lot of people, you know. I think that's how it is for most of the characters in this game. Yuri's it's interesting the contrast with Yuri, like as opposed to Natsuki. You know, Yuri has a ton of insecurities as well, and she's like so afraid of being disliked for her interests, and she's so afraid of like speaking her mind or putting her thoughts into words because she like doesn't want to come off a certain way. But there are other things where she thinks like really highly of herself, or she tries to anyway, you know. I think she wants to convince herself that these certain things about her are like better than everyone else, and like the people who make fun of her are just like, you know, like immature and like childish, and she's like better than that. But I think that in itself is also like a defense mechanism, you know. And that's another angle that I also experienced kind of through middle and high school, that some people would take if they had those sorts of insecurities regarding other people, you know. I was probably guilty of that like in middle school, you know. I was like a, you know, kind of like a arrogant asshole, probably more in my own head, I mean, you know, because like outwardly I was like a super like awkward weirdo who like didn't understand like social situations and stuff like that, you know. But in my, you know, so like when I didn't fit in to social situations, in my head I was like, oh, that's all beneath me, that's like immature garbage, you know. It was like, I don't know, it was, you know, it's like some pretty strong chunibyo. But I think I took some inspiration from that, like for Yuri, because she's like in her head so much, but outwardly is like actually so afraid of being disliked. And of course, you know, like her sort of chunibyo nature, she's like, oh, I have to be like, you know, all sophisticated and like highbrow and intellectual, so her poems are like super metaphorical and like, I don't know, has some like more advanced vocabulary than the others, you know. But sometimes like getting too abstract and metaphorical is like, I think Natsuki actually says this too at the end of this chapter when she's like arguing with Yuri. She's like, oh, making the meaning all cryptic is just an excuse to not have any meaning at all, you know. You could just like kind of pull it out of your ass or whatever. You know, Yuri's like probably not doing that, but I think like being like, you know, the point is that being abstract and metaphorical doesn't directly equate to like being more skilled, if that makes sense, even if that's like what Yuri wants to believe, you know. If she like has that idea of like the more intellectual type of writing, it like has to be that, then that's just kind of like what she's pigeonholing herself into. Monica was really fun to write during the poem responses because her responses are like, they are, once again, like at this point in the game, like with Monica being like, she's supposed to come across as like the guide character, you know, or like kind of the mascot of the game who helps you along, like to, you know, pick the girl that you want or whatever. And so she like talks more about the other girls and is like, oh, this is what those characters like, you know? So, you know, you seem to be getting along with them and stuff like that. So she's kind of like the tutorial character, if that makes sense. And that's like the way that her dialogue is framed through this, you know? So she's like, oh, this is something Sayuri would like. So it's like, in case you're not picking up on like the way the poem minigame works or like how to go for your character, she like, or you want to go for a different character, she like kind of explains like what each character likes in the vocabulary. And she teases you a little bit. She's like, oh, do you like her? And stuff like that. And she gets like more intense with that, like if you keep going for the same character, you know, because she's like starting to get jealous. It's almost like she understands her role as club president and thus being like the person who's like leading you through the game, but she's like also having a hard time like holding back her jealousy or her envy of the player getting so many scenes with all the other characters. This scene was so much fun to write. The little argument scene, it's like, oh, like pick the girl that you care about more, that you want to like, you know, have a better chance with or whatever. But it was like, I really liked the dynamic between Natsuki and Yuri throughout the game, because they are both they both have like these flaws or insecurities, but in just like different ways. And I always felt like they could like learn something from each other, if that makes sense. Oh, this song was also like so much fun to write. I think I didn't have this scene written yet when I came up with the song. I think I was in like a coffee shop with my sister, and I just heard a song that was playing on like, you know, like their Spotify playlist or whatever, and it's like, you know, the music was like really quiet, like, you know, oftentimes in coffee shops you like can't really hear the music unless it's like empty in there, but like I was able to hear like the bass and like the bass line of the song, and it sort of had that like a similar feel to like what's in this song. And so like, you know, that was like playing in my head like on the way home, and I ended up kind of just like extrapolating that into like more of a song, and I'm like, oh, this is such like a silly sounding like bouncy song that is like, you know, it would be really good if there's like something you know, something frantic happening or panicky, or like something's not going quite right, you know, like, or like there's this argument, and so like I was like working on the song and like knew that it would be like a really good fit for something like this.